Hi everyone, and welcome to Geometry Lesson 1-2, Measuring and Constructing Segments. In this video, we're just going to look at the first two types of examples that you'll see having to do with segments. Let's start off with some terms. The first term I have for you is coordinate, and that's a number that corresponds to a point on a number line. So if I was to look at my number line down here, point A has the coordinate -4 because that is the number on the number line that corresponds to point A. Next, let's talk about distance or length. Distance obviously is how far apart two things are. To calculate that using coordinates, we use the absolute value, and that's only because distance cannot be negative. It doesn't make sense to say I walked -2 miles. Okay, so we need to make it positive if we ever get a negative value. And all I have to do is subtract the two coordinates. So if I wanted the distance from B to A, I would do B's coordinates minus A's coordinates. So -2 minus -4. And I would subtract that to get 2, and then I have to make sure it's positive, and the distance is 2. The last thing we need to talk about is the ruler postulate. And basically this just says that if I have points on a line, I can line them up with a real number line. So it says I can basically make a ruler. So it gives me permission to make a number line like this and put points on it and line them up with coordinates on that number line. So we're going to take a look at an example where we need to find the distance between some coordinates. In example 1, we're asked to find the length of each segment. And notice they've given us segment DC, but they didn't use the segment symbol here because they're asking for the length. Anytime they refer to the length, they're going to list the letters without the segment symbol, and that's noting that it's length. So you need to find the length of DC. Try and do that on your own, and then press play to see if you're correct. What I did is I took the coordinate for point D, which is 4.5, and I took the coordinate for C, which is 2, and I subtracted them. 4.5 minus 2 is 2.5. And then I made sure my answer was positive because of these absolute value symbols. And I got positive 2.5. So now try to find the length of EF. See if you can do it, and then press play to check your answer. So what I did is I found the coordinate of point E, which is -4, and the coordinate of F, which is -1. I did -4 minus -1 to get -3. Then I had to make it positive. So I got +3. Okay, we're going to practice that a little bit more in class, but make sure that if you have any questions, you write them down. Let's take a look at another term word. Our next term word is congruent segments, and these are segments that have the same length. Now, we can't say that lines are congruent because lines go on forever. But if we take these parts of lines, they can have the same length. Okay, and lengths are allowed to be equal. But if I'm talking about the shapes, I can't say that PQ is equal to RS because I'm talking about shapes now. So I have to be careful, and I can say the segments are congruent, and congruent means that they have the same length. Okay, so that's what this means, and you can easily go between equal and congruent by using the definition of congruence. Now, we also use tick marks on a diagram to show that segments are congruent. So notice these little lines that I put on the segment. That means that those lines are congruent. So any segments in a diagram that have the same number of tick marks are going to be congruent. Let's take a look at another postulate next. Segment addition postulate says if you have a point between two other points on a segment, Then I can do this part, AB, plus this part, BC, equals the total length of AC. I like to say part plus part equals whole. Okay, because if you take the two small parts that make up the total thing and add them together, you will get the total length. Now, there are a few things to remember with this. If they don't give you a diagram, you need to draw one. It's very, very easy to get confused when they're just giving you letters for the segments. Draw the diagram and it will keep you from making mistakes later. And second, you always want to begin by making an equation. And I know sometimes this seems like extra work, but if you do it on the easier problems, then when you get to the harder problems where we have variables, you'll be able to do those questions as well. Okay, so begin by making an equation and then solve for whatever's missing. Let's take a look at an example to see how this works. In example 3a, they tell us that B is between A and C. AC equals 14 and BC equals 11.4. Find the length of AB. So start off by trying to draw the diagram and then press play to see if your diagram matches mine. In this diagram, I put A and C at the ends of the segment and B in between them because they said B is between A and C. Then I labeled my measurements. AC is 14 and BC is 11.4. So what you're going to do next is you're going to try and set up an equation to figure out what AB is. So what I did is I started off by writing AB plus BC equals AC because I took the part plus the part and it's going to equal the total length. Then I put in the values that I knew. AC is 14 and BC is 11.4. And then finally, to solve for AB, I subtracted 11.4 on both sides to get 2.6. Now there are more examples about this, but we're going to save those for class. Don't forget to write down any questions you have and bring them in, and I would love to answer them for you.